Hello, NeXT community. So today's discussion, I had a potential customer, Sergio, on eBay, and I thought, well, I need to make a video about this. He just got the NeXT sound box, and he got a NeXT turbo color and an ADB keyboard. And he's asking, what does my Y cable do? Okay, how does this cable work that I'm selling on eBay? And I said, I need a dedicated video that I can put for both the cables I make for mono systems as well as turbo colors. And I've got some guys that put them together for me over in Europe, and they've done a great job for many years. So I've just stayed with them. So your Y cable, why it's called a Y cable is it centered at the CPU and splits off, okay? And NeXT was the first computer company to have sound cards that actually did something other than beep. And they worked with Sony, and they put them in these sound boxes. Originally, they were in a NeXT 4000A monitor, right? And the first sound cards differ, but it gave you CD quality sound. You could do all kinds of neat stuff with them. So this is a 13W3 connector, okay, on your CPU. Either this, in this case, it's a NeXT Station color. Right underneath it, I have a NeXT Station turbo color. The difference is the turbo colors were the last released version. They had a 68040 33 megahertz processor, and they were capable of going to 128 megs of RAM. I do sell RAM. If your processor's bad, I do have processors. I sell BIOS batteries. I've got the DSP upgrade chips now, and I do sell RAM for both the NeXT color stations as well as color turbos. And I think my prices are pretty reasonable. They may not be the cheapest, but sometimes when you're paying the cheapest, you don't know if it's compatible with NeXT. My stuff works, which is great. So back to the cable. How does the cable work? So this cable, 13W3, this is a DB19 connector, okay? And then your NeXT keyboard plugs into your sound box. Your mouse plugs into the keyboard, and in this case, this is a non-ADB setup, which is a rectangular mouse, rectangular keyboard. The later model ADB mice look like this, and the keyboard was a little different. It'll have a green power button here, right? In this case, NeXT was the first company to power up, I believe, from the NeXT keyboard. In fact, we won a prior art patent litigation case where someone came in and bought the rights to the power up for the keyboard patent, and we were able to show that we were able to do it, I think, 5 years ahead of their patent. So that's how far advanced that was. Steve Jobs wanted one wire, okay, that goes from the mouse, keyboard, sound box, to CPU, to your DB, or your D plug, to the wall. And it worked fine because the original NeXT monitors were powered up through this cable too. When they broke it out, it gave you an option to do different flavors of monitors. NeXT had 3 different styles of monitors, okay? There was the Sony Trinitron, the Philips Phoebe, and the Hitachi 21-inch monitor. And on those monitors, they had either BNC or a 13W3 connector. All NeXT Y cables had the 13W3 connector here. Let's see if I can pull this one out from my pile to get a close-up of how it looks. Once more, I'm winging the video, and my workbench gets pretty populated quickly. So on the Y cables, just because you have a Y cable doesn't mean it's ADB compatible. You'll see a little number here, and I'm hoping this shows up because I'm sitting off to the side. In this case, it's 2285. This means it's only non-ADB compatible. In order for it to work with ADB components, it needs to say 4536 or 4534 or 4535. Okay? Threw an Achilles heel into a lot of systems. Sometimes, for whatever reason or madness back in the day, people would pull these pins. So if you do have a NeXT Y cable with pulled pins, I'm not clear on why it's happened, but there must have been like a wild internet rumor, if you pull the pin, something better happens. I've never figured that out, never found the original post, but someone did it. Okay, so don't worry, your Y cable should still work. Okay? And so we went along, and guess what disappeared from a lot of systems? In the case of Sergio, he's got his sound box and his NeXT color turbo station. You want to look and make sure you have your V74 ROM chip. It'll say right on the top. It's usually located next to the battery. And because that's what you need for ADB support, which was what he was asking about. For ADB, you'll also want to look to the back of your sound box where the keyboard plugs in. If it's got a squiggly line, the SCSI symbol, that means it's ADB. You can look at the connectors on your keyboard, right? In this case, you've got a MIDI DIN 5 connector, which is NeXT proprietary non-ADB. ADB is different. ADB is going to look like this, okay? So I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully this is turning up well. I'm not sure if I can zoom in and it'll actually do that. This is ADB. This is non-ADB. To plug it in, make sure your NeXT logo is up, okay? And it should just plug in. This is for non-ADB. I believe ADB, they use their own cable and there are no logos. But just make sure your pins align. And then it should plug in snugly with any luck. So, the other end. Okay, NeXT monitors, the original color monitors. Sony Trinitrons are failed. I mean, the chance of finding a working Sony Trinitron 17-inch color monitor, you're looking for unicorns. All right, they're all going to need to be rebuilt. Lots of examples of rebuilding processes on nextcomputers.org. You can see what guys have gone through to restore those. Hitachi 21's caps are starting to go. I do still have some working NeXT 17-inch Philips Phoebe monitors, and I'm doing those for, if they have some scratches on them, for about $400. The better ones I do for $500. You can't find them anymore, but they do offer, a clear picture. A better solution we came up with in the community a while back is these adapters are from Sun, and I do sell these for $19.95. So it goes from the Y cable, 13W3 to VGA, and I use these Dell flat panels. I do have these. They're a nice 19-inch flat panel. They have the sound bar built in. They support sync on green and 1280 by 1024 resolution and work great with NeXT hardware, both ADB and non-ADB. Went a step further, okay, because you can't find the Y cables in Sergio's case. People somewhere along the way, often I hear the wife's cleared out the retro computer box that had all the cables. Well, there went our turbo color cables. So I got a hold of guys in Europe, and we were able to make and have been, and I've sold hundreds of these nice little custom Y cables where we have a 13W3 connector. It splits out. One end goes to VGA, the other end goes to the sound box. Also made them for mono systems, right? Now for mono systems, your monitor needs to support 2-bit grayscale. And the difference is it's a DB19 connector for the mono system as the original 4000 and 4000As, okay, were DB19 to the video signal. So in this case, I've got the DB19, this centers at your cube, and this DB19 connector, like on the color system, is going to connect to your sound box. Then we've got the DB15 that connects to your flat panel or monitor of your choice. So you have more options available if you just have a NeXT Mono workstation or NeXT Cube. If you're not sure, just ask me. I'll be happy to help you out. But long story short, right? You will, if you don't have a NeXT Y cable, you can make your own. I do sell these very hard to find little DB19 connectors. We actually had to have them manufactured. Okay. And then you would still need to round up a 13W3 connector. And then these shrouds also, okay. Somewhere along the way, engineers got involved and decided to put a little flange on here, okay, which makes it so on a lot of hardware, it won't mate flushly. So if I do sell you one of these and you're not getting a good connection at your sound box, you can take the flange apart and just sand it down here, just a little bit, and that gives you a nice, connection. I'm doing the best I can with what I get dealt. And for some reason, they changed the design on the flanges for both 13W3 connectors as well as DB19 connectors. And I'm gathering it was to prevent twisting or this twisting loose, but it also, the engineers probably didn't take it and put it to a retro computer because now it doesn't plug in securely, okay? But you can mod it, and I think I mentioned that in the comments. It's easy. I just get a little sanding block. I've got a sanding block. I take it apart carefully and then just sand it. And that makes all the difference in the world. To show you that it works, hopefully, this is a live demo. I press power. We should see the image come up on the screen. And I am not sure if this is a good SD card. I just put in the brand new Zulu RP2040 card. And then this SD card was sitting here conveniently. We'll see if it says the system test is passed. This is good. You can kind of watch everything. You know the video is good when it comes up like this. It mounts all my partitions. It's got my latest version of the INI file. And I am working directly with the manufacturers now. So I'm beta testing for them for, Rabbit Hole Computing, Inertial, and Zulu. And we've got some some very talented hardware engineers. So it's kind of neat. I get to test all the latest and greatest stuff now for you guys and get it up and running on NeXT hardware. Sometimes the first computers that we're testing with are now NeXTs. So before it's even, being tested in theory on Apple and stuff like that, the old Apples, I'm getting in that early. So it's kind of fun. I've been doing this 31 years, and I really love my job, which is, it's kind of neat working with these old systems. You just have to be patient on boot, okay? For my master ISOs now, I've set it up to emulate. There's 6 different hard drives now, right? The SCSI controller will handle 7. I usually leave that last SCSI ID reserved for a plug-in CD-ROM. In the case of NeXT stations and cubes, I've got an internal CD-ROM that works well, internal CD DVD. All this stuff was cutting edge, and it's nice because you're replacing these old, noisy, SCSI hard drives that may or may not work. Here's an example. So we've gone from this to being able to boot off a little SD card. And I probably have some sitting here. I use the one over here. But it's the same type that you would find in, say, some high-speed cameras and things like that. So hopefully I don't look too goofy. We'll see if we can log in. I'll show you the color stuff. And if you don't have sound, okay, sometimes the speakers inside here fry. I now have some replacement speakers, and you can also plug in on these Dell monitors I sell. They have a sound bar that you can plug in to get sound. So we'll log in. And you can see it's a nice, crisp display. Same case with my NeXT, custom cables that I'm selling on eBay. On my eBay store, Computer Powwow, just type in, NeXT, and I believe it's just Y cable. And the store should come up. And I've got a lot of different items. I also have my regular website, blackholeinc.com. We are updating that, and my hope is to have it working. I'm putting some new assistance in there to get things, repaired and updated and modernized. It's one of the web's oldest running web stores. I've been doing this since 1993. It was my first job I interviewed for after graduating CSU here in Fort Collins. And I moved back up here in 2006. So that was in 92, graduated, moved to Denver, moved back up. And I never thought it would be going this strong in 2024. But it's just testament to Steve Jobs and NeXT and the NeXT community. And I've stayed with it. We would invite you to join nextcomputers.org. If you're having trouble registering, just get a hold of me, either through the eBay Messenger. I'm on Facebook. There's NeXT Computer Enthusiasts on Facebook. You can look at my, I've got, I think, close to 700 videos now. This should make a good one. Hopefully everything's recording, but you get the idea. So, there you have it. And tons of apps. Let's see if we can do something to show the color. Now, NeXT was very advanced in their video as well, okay? For the time, most systems out there had 256K color. It was maybe 640 by 480. Where NeXT had 24-bit color that emulated 32 and had millions of colors. And so right now it's taken a second to think. I really pushed the envelope on this tech. As I say, normally it would be, to get this configuration, you would have a stack of these. In this case, there would be 6 different ones. And the original ones weighed 7 pounds each. So I was joking, yeah, you could, bench press, build some biceps. And like the NeXT hardware, I too am aging. Strongly recommend replacing the capacitors on the motherboard. I've got my friend Matt here in town that does a great job for me doing caps. I recommend having somebody that really knows what they're doing replace the caps. And the reason is there's electrolytic fluid that lurks within these old style capacitors. And after all these years, if you don't know what a cap is, I'll show you here on a card. Okay, so your caps are going to look like these little cylinder type deals, right? And there's going to be silver with black, and that you want to replace them that way, directional, right? So they burst open, you'll see a bulged cap, and the electrolytic fluid gets on your components and can cause a lot of damage. It's kind of like, I don't know if it's acidic, but it really can destroy your entire computer. So what we've done, the latest version of caps are ceramic, and there's tantalum. There's a couple different types. We do the ceramic caps, and it basically, a ceramic cap's going to kind of look just like this. It's small. It doesn't have the height. And then I've got some, for the larger caps, we do a blue Austrian cap that looks really sharp. So we use quality components in our repairs. Matt's done hundreds of motherboards for me and customers. Not one has been returned. His background, he was a quality control manager for Celestica motherboards. They were located here in Fort Collins, and then they made Dell motherboards, right? They moved the factory to Mexico a while back. Shut down the plant here. So it's his part-time deal. He's got a full-time business cleaning carpets and vents. So I have him help me out with the dust around here as well. And he does a great job repairing motherboards in his spare time, as well as we do new caps on sound boxes. I'm going to have him recap some of the original NeXT Sony 1X CD-ROMs. We did attempt some of the optical drives, and they're just a little bit too more complicated, so that requires a real engineer. I've got some guys that can do that, but it's labor intensive and kind of spendy. And I do have a guy back east where I sent some. Hopefully we'll hear from him soon as to whether he's had success in getting some drives going for me, as I've got a lot of really cool stuff. When NeXT originally started on cubes, the only option was a NeXT optical disc, which was kind of the idea, was a computer in your pocket, 256 meg, and then you can take it cube to cube. Canon invested heavily in NeXT, right? About 155 million, and NeXT pushed them to develop the first read-write optical drive. And at the time, you have to remember, hard drives were, I think, capped out at about 100 meg. And even 40 meg. And so to have 256 meg on an optical disc was something out of the future. Then as the drives got better, they went, a full height 330 meg drive was $2,000. So this will give you an example. Here's an app that was developed by, and some of you might have seen it on other platforms, but with the NeXT developer tools. So all of the apps, it's pretty cool, using object-oriented programming, were developed by one- and two-man shops. We'll do the black hole here and run, and then you'll see it start to come up. So it's going to take a second. And then, with NeXT, you can see it start to develop, showing off the colors. And it's going to take a while. So as, you have to think back to, these systems aren't real speed demons. This is 1988 through 93, the first month of 93 technology. So it was the fastest that they were capable of doing at that point. And I do have it maxed out at 32 megs of RAM. The RAM does help on your turbo color. I would recommend going to 128 meg. I do sell the NeXT compatible RAM. It's basically $1 a meg. So you'd be looking at, for 128 meg upgrade, it's $128, which I think is fair. You might find chips cheaper out there, but I know these ones work. There's a lot of duds going on, unfortunately, as many of you have experienced. So you can see it's slowly building the Mandelbrot of the black hole here. I think I've got so much to do today that I am going to go ahead and call this a pretty good video. Hope it explained how Y cables work, the difference between a mono system is a DB19 connector at the center, okay, and the color systems use 13W3. So there you have it. They split off to another DB19 connector. All NeXT hardware is going to need a sound box. There was an adapter that allowed you to bypass the sound box for ADB, but it didn't work for non-ADB unless there's been an adaptation. I know there's a guy, Drakeware, that had a NeXT box, Drake, DRAKware.com. He's been sold out of that thing for 2 years. I don't know if it's, if he's going to develop something. We are working, as we speak, on a USB to non-ADB solution for black hardware. What that's going to do is you will no longer have to have the proprietary NeXT keyboard and mouse. We're also toying with the idea now, this is fluid, of making a retro keyboard that is non-ADB, which would solve it. We do have the 3D files now, as of this week, to make a replacement non-ADB mouse. So that's going to be coming. As I say, lots of cool stuff is happening at the black hole. Just got the DSP expansion chips in a couple days ago. That's something new from Aberco. And amazing stuff. We got an amazing engineer over there that's come up with some really neat stuff. And it's fun working with the NeXT community. I've got Elaine has created a replacement combo faceplate for NeXT cubes that has the floppy and optical slot. I'm having metal machined parts made right now, so I'm going to have those available. He's also going to make a back. Many of the NeXT cubes, for whatever reason, are missing the back plane, and that's in the works. I'm sending him some cube backs so that he can make a 3D STL model for us that'll be printable. And so stay tuned. It's really fun for me. We also have, if you don't have a NeXT sound box, Brian Archer, another talented engineer, has we have the new I/O sound cards available and a nice 3D printed case. I'm having Matt, I've got some original NeXT sound boxes that we're making dual compatible, which is nice. So we put in their ADB cards, and then we run a little mod, and then we put in a non-ADB port, so you can go either way. If you have ADB on a turbo or mono turbo system with the V74 chip, only then can you use ADB components, okay? You also need that cable. My cables are dual compatible, which is another nice thing. So there we have our Mandelbrot. Sorry I'm rambling on. I hope it makes sense. I hope I explained it well. And above all, I don't know if you can see me, but appreciate everybody's business and patience. I don't often put my ugly mug in the picture for good reason. Have a good day. Appreciate it. Goodbye.